Hello to everyone. This is Husky Hoops. I am sort of your host, best podcast host in the universe, Steve Cully. And with us, as always, the voice of the Huskies, the icon, the best of the best, Joe D'Ambrosio. Joe, hello. And Coach Schuman, the next greatest influencer, who is outside walking his dog. Is he cooperating?
My dog, yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I appreciate that he's cooperating. I had wanted to ask you, Joe, because you had semi-predicted this. The turnaround from Maui to Dayton was quite short, and you thought that they may have trouble with Dayton, and in turn, they most certainly did have trouble. They lost.
Well, Dayton was in Maui, Steve.
Yeah, that was the last game in Maui, but
Right.
it was a quick turnaround. But you had predicted that it could be trouble after taking the two losses.
Let's get the facts straight. It was 3 games in 3 days. They
In
knew
3 days.
what they were getting into. Because they sucked, they had a longer break because they played the last game on Wednesday night.
Oh, they had basically the consolation game.
Yeah, the ultimate consolation game.
The ultimate consolation game. But it was considered a pretty big upset, and the first time that they've lost 3 games, I believe, in a long time. And I don't think that they lost 3 games since Hurley's been coaching.
Oh, huge!
In a row.
They lost 3 games in a row 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Okay.
I don't know why everybody. And I'm not picking on you here, but everybody seems to have this forgetfulness that before their run to the 23 national championship in January, they were pretty bad.
Yeah, they were struggling down the stretch.
They were pretty bad.
I didn't know that they had lost 3 in a row like this. So, I mean, because you go on the boneyard or whatever, and it's like the sky is falling. And everyone is complaining, and Hurley's losing his touch, and he's going crazy, and they can't find the right mix of guys to go with because he made some changes to the lineup. He started the guy that you mentioned, Hassan Diarra, at the point, right?
Right.
And that was a difference. Solo ball, he definitely had a little bit of a setback, but Liam McNeely played better. There was some good things to look forward to, but a team like Dayton should not be competitive with UConn.
Oh, I totally agree.
Do you think it was more?
People who say that are thinking this UConn team is last year's UConn team. They do. Yeah. Here's breaking news. They're not. Okay? That team lost 4 guys to the NBA and to the G League. This team is trying to move guys into new positions with the exception of Alex Caravan. It's a different team. So the idea, if it's not a bye game like Maryland Eastern Shores or New Hampshire or the Sacred Heart or the other 2 cupcakes that they played, the idea that they're not going to be in a game with teams is moronic.
Did you think they took them lightly?
I thought after they lost the first 2, yeah. I thought there was fully a chance they could lose to Dayton.
I wonder if so obviously other than the All-American they brought in, is the roster not a 1 roster, more of a 1A roster kind of deal? Is that kind of part of what you're talking about with respect to, you're not surprised by kind of where they might be at right now? Is it not either the level of talent or that Hurley hasn't yet gotten to them to that point, or maybe they won't get to that point? I don't know.
We don't know. I think, Dave, that's a great question. I think time will tell just how good this roster will be. We'll certainly learn a lot more in the next 3 games. Baylor tonight, Texas on Sunday, Gonzaga at MSG the following Saturday. We'll learn a lot more, and then we'll learn a lot more when they get in the Big East season. But to lose 3 games in a row to 3 decent opponents, I think Memphis boys was a lot better than everybody thought they were. I think Colorado, that was a bad loss. I don't think Dayton was a bad loss because their minds, after they lost 2 in a row and having to wait to play till 7 o'clock Hawaiian time that last game, which isn't an excuse. Okay, they're college kids. It's not like they're old bastards like we are. But I think time's going to tell how good this roster is. I don't think it's a lead pipe cinch like everybody says. I think the talk of the three-peat turns out to be foolish now.
Yeah, and that was talked about so early on, and I think
talked about by the coach.
It added
a ton
of pressure to these guys.
It's the coach who brought it up.
Yeah, he
did. It seems like he's also trying to find the right mix of guys, and it's like on the floor at the same time. I don't know if that's experimentation from his standpoint because he's not convinced that he has that 5 yet. But that's what it seems like he's doing a lot of experimentation there. Like other than Caravan, he's really like experimenting. It seems like with different groups, at least from what I've watched, he's putting different groups on the floor to see if there's like a mesh point with those guys.
That's a good point, Dave. I think the 3 guys that you're sure of is I think you're sure of Caravan, I think you're sure of McNeely, and I think you're sure of Solo Ball. Then you're trying to figure out whether it's Sampson or Reed, who's the best fix at center. And look, they're both going to play. In theory, it's going to be like it was the last 2 years where you had guys splitting time at the center. And then the other thing is the point guard. I wouldn't give up on Mahoney yet.
Yeah.
He hasn't played well. And I think Diarra is better coming off the bench because he's prone to foul trouble.
They were in foul trouble pretty much the entire tournament, weren't they?
Yeah, they were.
For the most part.
And 99% of those fouls in the 2 games I saw, they were fouls.
Legit fouls. They weren't touchy.
Yeah. Were there a couple of calls, the over-the-back calls involving McNeely could have gone either way. And that might have been a deciding factor in the game. But you shouldn't have yourself, if you're UConn, you shouldn't have yourself into the position where one call decides a game.
Well, what stood out to me also was the 67 points. I mean, that's a low output for our offense. I think our offense is capable of doing much better than that. 34 points and 33 points in each half. That's not going to get it done, whoever you play.
Right. Yeah, the offense struggled. But again, Steve, I think that's all part of trying to find who you are. And as David mentioned, it's the lineups in so you've got those 7 guys that I mentioned. Then you're trying to work Jalen Stewart, who should play a lot. I've been on his bandwagon since the beginning. You've got Jaden Ross, who looks like he can be a contributor, and Ahmad Noel looks like he could be a contributor. You've got a potential of playing 10 guys, but you got to find the minutes for him. You got to find who's the best mixed with who. I think only the Abraham kid isn't going to see a lot of time this year.
But Caravan playing 36 minutes, Ball playing 35 minutes. Is that their ceiling? I mean, should they keep it at 30 minutes and under, or do you think they can play up to 40?
No.
They're going to have to carry the load for them to have the same type of success.
Well, them and McNeely, because McNeely's their only pure scorer.
Yeah, from anywhere on the court.
I think it's one of the things where I think that, and that's why I think he's been, to me, I mean, he's always a fiery guy, but extra fiery in the sense that I find him to be a coach just studying him, that feels like he can will teams to score 4 to 6 extra points in the game. That might be the difference in some of these tight games. And I think he has some level of, at least early on, some level of frustration with that fact that he hasn't yet found the exact mix. And I think you're 100% right. He's got to have those two guys have to have, as close to 40 as they can handle from a minute standpoint. And then it's that other mix of guys, like when those guys come off the floor, when they do get a rest for a few minutes, a couple minutes at a clip, like it can't be a disaster, right? So that's the other thing, that they haven't found the mix of guys where they don't get in these bad runs that they're giving up a bunch of points at a clip. I mean, that becomes very difficult, not just from a game standpoint, but psychologically to come back from when you're getting these multiple runs of big points.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that's a fair point. But when you recruit and you put a roster together, you're figuring who's going to fit in where, who's going to slot in where. And so far, it just hasn't. The 5 games they were supposed to win easily, they won easily. The 3 games that were going to be contests, they were contests. Now they've got 3 more before they go to the Big East. They're going to be big challenges. Those are all losable games starting tonight.
Oh, huge. Yeah.
If they're 5 and 6 going into Big East play, I wouldn't be surprised.
Wow.
Because tonight will be difficult without Caravan.
Yeah.
You have the benefit of playing in stores, but this is a Baylor team. It's got a lot of transfers on it, and they've played a lot of basketball, and they've played well already this season. Then you go down to Texas, which again is a team that can score, always tough at their home arena. And then Gonzaga, perennially one of the best teams in the country. Gonzaga beat the crap out of Baylor in their first game of the year. So do I think they'll lose all 3? No, I don't. I don't think they'll lose all 3. Do I think they'll win all 3? No, I don't think they will. But I think either 2-1 or 1-2 is within the realm of possibility.
Yeah, but McNeely playing 29 minutes and not scoring a point, that's unacceptable. They can't have that.
Yeah, Steve, but he's a freshman. He's a freshman. He's gonna have nights like those, and those are gonna be much fewer than the nights that he scores 12 to 18 points. So if he has a game, one bad game, I think people should ease up on the brakes on that, because as good as he is, he's still a freshman.
Yeah. But the expectations put on him are so great that people expect him to go out and get double-doubles day in and day out. And realistically, that is just not possible. But as you said, the problem they're going to have is who is going to take charge and take that point guard position, and who's going to step up and do it.
Right, because I think what we're finding out now is just how much they miss Tristan Newton.
For sure. Because it's visible. It's visible on every possession that they have, that they're slow moving the ball around, and they're not as explosive as they were the past 2 years.
Well, but don't forget, they were explosive also because they had Jordan Hawkins, Andre Jackson, Cam Spencer, and Stephen Castle. That's another reason that they were explosive. It wasn't just Newton. And before the NCAAs in 23, I wasn't sold on Newton. I didn't think he was anything special. But from that 6-game run in the 23 NCAAs through all last year, he became one of the best point guards in UConn history, which is hard to say in only 2 years.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because they've had so many good point guards for him to be in there for 2 years. That definitely speaks volumes. If you're Dan Hurley What are you thinking right now? I mean,
I'm thinking I can't act like a jackass. Seriously.
You think that
well, I wonder
if
that he has to adapt. Does he have to try to now adapt his approach a little bit with this team? Because the approach he was able to kind of use with the last two teams may not work with this group of kids, right? Is that something that you think?
No, Dave, because
okay,
when kids come here, they know what they're coming to.
They know what they're getting into.
You know, it's the same theory I used to have as when people would sit behind our bench when Coach Calhoun was coaching and was mortified by his language to the players. Did you know who he was? Did you know where your seats were? It's the same theory. Right. When I talk about Dan, who I really like, who I really like, you can't get on the officials all the time. You just cannot. It's gonna get back. Every official
they all talk
knows what his behavior is like, and they're gonna have a short leash with him. And the other thing is, when you lose 3 games in 3 nights, you can't whine about playing in 3-team events. You just cannot do that. He has gotten crushed nationwide for those whiny comments, and it doesn't reflect well on him. And frankly, it doesn't reflect well on UConn.
And I believe, did you say this was the last year they're going to Maui? They're not going next year?
Well, he said they're not. According to him, they're not going to do any more of these 3-day multi-team events.
Wow. Did he say that? And I don't know, so that's why I'm asking. Did he say that publicly where his players knew that was the case?
Yeah.
I wonder if that's part of, there's a little disdain from an attitude standpoint going out there to begin with, that they know they're not doing this anymore, and they really want to.
I don't think that had anything to do with it.
That's quite a trip to take, to not say, hey, we're going to be here excitedly and enthusiastically.
Everybody else does.
Yeah, everyone else loves going to play there.
Dave, let me let you in on this. No 18 to 22-year-old is going to bitch about going to Maui.
Right. Well, that's my point, is to saying, why is it something that you have to actually say already that we're not going to do? Why not say it after the fact?
Because he wants everything to be the way he wants it to be. That's all.
Got it.
Pure and simple. Pure and simple. I mean, I was really disappointed by those comments, especially the timing of them.
Right.
You get your ass whipped by Dayton. You can't complain after that game about these 3-day team events. Did
that's not
Memphis complain? Did North Carolina complain? Did Dayton complain? No. And if they had those thoughts, guess what? They kept them to themselves.
We were the only ones who did. Who do you see going forward? Because obviously they're still searching to find their identity. They're still searching to find that point guard. They're still searching to find that lineup that can carry them through the next 2 toughest games, 3 toughest games, and then into conference play. Who do you think it's going to end up being that they're going to fall onto for the starting 5?
Well, I think it's going to be Samson Johnson in the middle. It's going to be McNeely. It's going to be Caravan. It's going to be Ball. And then the only decision is going to be, does he think Diarra can be a starter? Does he think Mahoney could adapt to being a point guard? Or does he think maybe he plays Jalen Stewart and uses Ball as the point guard, which I think, is a possibility, but I don't think that's their best path. I think you've got to sort out. I think you've got to get Mahoney playing the way you think he was. Now, I think I'm right on this. He wasn't a point guard at St. Mary's.
No, he was a 2, I believe.
He was a shooter, right? He was a 2 guard. It's a lot of pressure on the kid to come in here to 2-time national champ and try to adapt to point guard. It has nothing to do with replacing Newton. Kids don't give a crap about that. It's they're who they are. So I think they've got it. Again, I think if you get Mahoney straightened out and you bring Diarra off the bench, that's your best twosome. Just like I think it's better to start Samson Johnson and bring Ross off the bench.
Is the fact that there's not a true point guard in charge right now part of the issue? Meaning, like, it's like seeing the floor to me is something that point guards have, because they developed it all these years as a young person, or it's going to be hard to develop it. I'm not saying it can't be developed, because it can be, but point guards seem to really have that feel for where everybody people are going to be on the floor, and it seems like it may be only a right now issue. It may not be a future 10 games from now issue, but It seems like they have a point guard issue, which they really haven't had a big problem with that the last 2 years.
Right. I think it'll be rectified.
Okay.
I think the whole sky is falling thing is a little stupid. But again, I think what this 3-game stretch has shown, and perhaps the next 3-game stretch, is that this team is not the same team that won 2 national championships. And they haven't tried to portray themselves that way. That's all a fan and media perception.
Yeah.
Okay? That has nothing to do with the team. There's nothing to do with Danny or the coaaches.
Danny did say he wants to win the third, right?
Whether he wants to win it, or whether he wants to win it, or whether he realizes it's not the same team, are two different subjects.
True.
Well, I mean, every coach goes in and they want to win a national championship, right? Wouldn't you say the goal is
of course,
to win a conference and go to the tournament, make a run, win a national title? But understanding what you have in your team. Now, the question I have is because I was a college football coach, and a lot of coaches stick to their scheme, and they don't necessarily adapt to the talent around them that may not be able to run the scheme that they want to run. Could he tailor the scheme a little bit to what he has to help them, put them in a better position for success?
If he thinks it will. But if he thinks they can play the scheme that he wants to play, then they'll keep just trying to get better at it. That's all.
And you don't think it's schematically an issue?
No,
it's not. Okay.
No, because it's worked.
It has. Yes,
it's worked the last couple of years. It's just a matter of getting people to play better and finding the right pieces, and also divvying up minutes.
I saw that
last year. They had 3 freshmen, Ball, Stewart, Ross, who when they got into Big East play didn't play all that much. Now Stewart came on later in the year. Ball played a lot when Castle was hurt before the conference season. Ross didn't get much run at all. That's 3 kids who could have left. But they worked on them, and they convinced them that this year they would have bigger roles, and they do. Clearly, So I just think it's a matter of just the players feeling not, and I'm sure all this three-peat talk, I'm sure the fit players feel a little, jittery about it. Because even if you say you're not thinking about it, they talk about it all the time. All the time.
No, they do. They do, because as you said, it's really the narrative that's been drawn out by the media. And it's
and their coach.
And their coach.
I would put the coach way ahead of the media on that one.
So you think Hurley in meetings or whatever, he's always talking about three-peat.
Well, I don't know how much he's talking about it in meetings, Steve, but it's not something that's gone on. He said as soon as they won the second, he says, I want to win the third. So that set the tone right there. And look, it's fine to talk about that.
Right.
But the realistic point right now is they've got no better chance to win a national championship than 50 other teams.
Wow.
50. Right now, as we speak.
Now,
I'd say there's 50 maybe strong, maybe 30 other teams. Let's say 30 that could win it all.
Now, forgive me for not knowing this, but where were they last year at this time?
They were good. They lost to Kansas, but they were playing fine. Castle was hurt, so Ball was playing for him. But no, they were doing quite well. They were highly ranked. The loss at Kansas was a real good performance at a place where they never lose. So yeah, they were in a completely different place than they were this year. Even though, again, they had a bunch of new guys.
Yeah,
they had Klingon in a role that he hadn't had. They had Castle as a freshman. They had Caravan in a role that he didn't have the year before. They had Cam Spencer, who hadn't been there. The only guy who repeated his role was Tristan Newton. So in a way, they were in the same boat as this year's team.
Right. And do you see, I mean, I know they played University of Maryland Eastern Shore. I got it right. They got a bit, I mean, they won, which is a positive going into the tough stretch of their non-conference schedule. Could that be the start, at least, of the momentum builder to get them going?
See that number?
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with it. It was a glorified scrimmage.
I know. I saw it. But, I mean, they scored 99 points.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It was Maryland Eastern Shore.
Yeah.
It might have well been the Little Sisters of the Poor. It has nothing to do with the rest of the season.
Right.
All it was a get right game after what happened in Maui.
But I mean, at least they have some time. I mean, they have a few days between now and tonight to get some things right, to hopefully get a lineup straightened out to where they can go into Baylor or have Baylor come to us and play with. I mean, they've lost 3 in a row. They've been hammered. They should have not as much pressure on them. I know Hurley's going to put the pressure on them, but you've already lost 3 in a row. You've already had people hammering you. I'd like to see him just cut loose and play and just let it go.
In a perfect world, that would happen, but I totally disagree with you.
Yeah,
on they don't have any pressure on them.
No, they do. They do.
There's more pressure on them.
You're the defending 2-time
national champs. You're home. You're back on the mainland where you're not playing a midnight game, so everybody's going to be able to watch. I think there's an incredible amount of pressure on them.
So what are the key factors, in your opinion, for them to come out and beat Baylor?
Well, I think they've got to get the crowd in the game early, because Gamble can be an intimidating place.
It can.
I think they've got to hit their threes. I think they have to rebound the ball. And, this is a veteran Baylor team. They have loaded up on transfers. Not particularly big size-wise, but very athletic. And I think you've got to keep Baylor off the offensive glass. Second and third chance hoops do a lot to solve shooting woes.
Right.
But I think the main thing, to be honest with you, is get the crowd in the game early. Open up like an 8-2, 14-6 lead. Have the people be crazy. And look, this, guys. It doesn't take much to get the crowd at Gamble going anyways. It's by far a better home court environment than Hartford.
Well, if you remember in 2022 too, they lost. They were rolling early on, and then they lost like 6 of 8 in the middle there.
Right, in January.
And it looked like we looked great early on. We're like, wow, this is the team. And then it was almost like it looked like then for a while it was going to be back to what the team was the year before.
Right.
And then they got rolling and they hit it. And obviously, they won the national championship. Now, last year was not the case. They had two losses. They were
right.
pretty great the whole entire time. But it will be interesting. I am from a curiosity standpoint as an old coach standpoint to see how he continues to make adjustments with the roster to figure out what that mix is, right? Because he figured it out in 2022, and he seems to be that mad scientist kind of coach where he's always working to figure out the perfect group to be able to play together and the perfect mix. And I think when he nails it, obviously, then I think they'll be in great position. But until it gets to a point, I feel like he may be in that mode for a while. But obviously, it has to get corrected pretty quickly because you're right. The Big East comes about, and you don't want to lose too many games there because then all of a sudden they start talking about you being a bubble team, and that that's the last place you want to be going into the NCAAs.
Exactly. That's a great point. I mean, especially look, if you go 1-2 in the next 3 games, it's hideously disappointing. It'll make people talk, but it doesn't kill you because the important thing is the conference.
Right.
The important thing is the conference. The idea that they're going to stumble in the Big East, I still don't buy because I don't think the Big East is great by any stretch. I think it's good. I think Marquette's good. I think Creighton's good. St. John's hasn't been as good as people expected. I think everybody else is mediocre and below. So, I don't think they can't have another great year in the Big East and set themselves up for a good Big East tournament. But again, that's 3 months, 4 months down the road. I think the big thing is these next 3 games, and as you said, Dave, the ability to figure some things out, and a lot of that's going to depend on how long Alex is out for. If Caravan misses a couple more games, then you don't get that continuity. But what you do, and Dan talked about this after practice yesterday, is guys get a chance to shine. Jaden Stewart gets a chance to shine. Jalen Stewart, Jaden Ross gets a chance to shine. Solo ball, Mitchell Reed, or Harris Reed. You got guys. This will give guys an opportunity to step up. The only thing you worry about is if they don't.
If they don't answer the call, yeah.
Well, then you might know too which guys cannot play as much without Caravan there, because you might find out pretty quickly that some of these guys that you think they may be scoring 8 or 10 points, you think maybe they can get there. Without him there, you might be able to find out if these guys are able to get there or not able to get there, and that could probably help you whittle down minutes wise, right? Because I do think it is hard. I mean, listen, Dean Smith was great at it, playing 10 guys, but it's hard to play a lot of guys and be able to get them when they come in off the bench to do well. There's certain guys that can do it really well, and there's some guys that can't. And it's what else is a totally sidebar part of it, but it's interesting looking at the top 25 rankings, and I think UConn and Marquette are the only ones that are in there, right, from the Big East. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, I think you're right.
So that also is interesting, and a little bit of what we had talked about in the past, where that because of the game that it is now with NIL, those big schools, man, have so much capital, and I do, and obviously it's too early to tell, so this could be me blowing smoke, but it does seem like that there could be an effect there, because even those basketball only schools, they're limited to the amount of capital they can raise and get into their teams, whereas these other teams obviously are not limited to an extent. So I'm curious. I mean, as the season shakes out, if that continues to be the case. I also think the interesting thing, and this happens to do with football, like what you see a 1-year switch, like what Florida State was undefeated, and then the next year they have 1 win, and how amazing! Oh, yeah. I think that was shocking to everybody this year in football that could actually happen. You could have a powerhouse team, almost a championship level team, and the next year not have that. And I think you may see more of that in spots because of the fact that money is such a factor that if you don't kind of nail it right, that mix of guys, and this is basketball and football, if you don't nail it right, and then you lose a good amount of your guys from one year to the next, you could actually be in danger of being a championship team one year and literally a bad team the next year, which could be sobering.
And don't you think also, too, that it could be even more precipitous in basketball because you only play 5 guys at a time and you only have 15 guys on your roster? Football, you can get 85 guys. So if you miss on one, you've got a couple of more at every position who can step in. Will they be as good as the number one guy? No, but you've still got them. You've still got the numbers. Basketball, you go 3 deep at each position and that's it. And normally,
there's a limited number of good basketball players. That's really the truth. Yes, there was a limited number of the top guys. There really isn't. I mean, people are like, oh, this guy. No, there really is a limited number of guys that are good enough to do what you need to get done.
Right.
And once you dip into second tier, you really, I mean, every once in a while, yes, you see stories of these guys that were good, but they weren't elite and become elite. Yes, there are those guys, but for the most part, there is. I remember this for a while ago. I had a neighbor that his brother was the assistant basketball coach for the Brooklyn Nets, and he used to tell me, I was shocked by this. He said, "We know at 16 years old who the best basketball players are going to be going forward." I said, "How do you because in football that's really not the case. You know, you're guessing in football, but it really never pans out that way." But they said we know within a very, very small percentage of guys who the best players are going to be at 16 and where they're going to potentially project going forward, college and maybe NBA. And I always sticks with me with basketball because that means that there are a limited number of those players outside of the 1 or 2 guys that go from 0 to 100 out of nowhere. So you have to nail the players you bring in. You really have to nail it.
There's no question. The circle's much smaller in basketball than it is in football. You got to hit, because if you don't, then you have an off year and then you're starting from scratch. Although that's not as much the case anymore because all these I think it's Baylor has 4 transfers starting. Texas has a bunch of transfers in the program. UConn's got this year it's only the Mahoney kid, but they've got freshmen. Well, Mahoney in the center. So you got 2 kids. It's any of the roster building ideas that we had from the past, forget. They're totally out the door. It's totally changed in every sport.
Right.
Look at all the transfers football brought in. They brought 28 transfers in, and it paid off.
They did.
It paid off in 8 wins.
I heard baseball has to do it now.
Baseball has always.
Oh, they have. Okay.
Jimmy Penders has always been good. And what baseball does more often than not, though, is they bring in D3 kids. D3 kids who can play.
Oh, they transfer up.
Upgrades. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, last couple of years, the Huskies had some kids from D3 who turned out to be really, really good. So, but the idea in basketball that you bring in 5 freshmen and they bond and they get experience and stuff, nobody wants to see that anymore. You might bring in 5 freshmen. You better bring in 2 or 3 grad transfers.
And is the one and done thing as far as what Calipari did, where he brought in 5 quote unquote one and dones? Is that kind of gone too?
No, because look at the Cooper Flag. This is going to be an extraordinary. The experts say this is going to be an extraordinary NBA draft, mainly with one and dones. The kid from UConn is going to be one and done.
Right.
And he's probably a lottery pick,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, in fact, to be honest with you, Dave, I think one and done is even as much, if not more so, in play because these kids get inflated expectations of.
But you won't get 5 on one team anymore, I don't think,
Oh,
right?
that was, and I don't think you got 5. I think that Kentucky team was the only one that you ever had. That you ever
because
had.
money wise, you can't afford. Can you afford 5? Right, like 5.
Not to pay all 5.
But back then there wasn't a cost to it.
No, there was a cost. That's my point. Is that I don't know if you could. That they're gonna even the biggest universities, and the biggest NAL groups. I don't know if they're gonna want to put all their eggs in 5 one and dones type of deal.
Well, except, don't you think, guys, that if a kid knows he's going to be one and done and go into the association, you don't have to pay him as much money because he's only going to be there 1 year?
I think he's going to try to maximize his value and get as much as he can.
You do? Yeah, all right. Okay.
Well, I think that's why they said Paige stayed another year, because she was making so much money going to the WNBA. She would have taken a pay cut.
Now, we talked about this before. All those endorsement deals she has in college, they're going to carry over.
They carry over
to WNBA. And you've heard that enough about they're going to take a pay cut that it's stuck in your brain, Stevie. But that's pure bullshit.
Yes,
that's pure bullshit. If you think I'm just going to throw, I don't even know. Like a story came out today that she's going to have her own shoe.
Yes,
Clark didn't even have her own shoe.
December 7th, it comes out.
So the idea that they're not taking their endorsements to the WNBA, that's a crock of crap.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I just didn't know, because football-wise, it was the lowest number of underclassmen that declared for the NFL draft, and people thought it was because of NIL deals and NIL money that they were given.
Yeah,
but that's different. They're different than
apples and oranges.
Right.
It's apples and oranges.
It's different than endorsements. Okay.
Right.
I understand that part.
Gatorade, Nike, and all this other, T-Mobile, and whoever, who are State Farm, all these endorsements these kids have. They're not going away when they go to the W.
No. If anything, they're going to get bigger. They're going to get bigger.
Maybe.
And I just wanted to get your thoughts. I know that they're starting this 3-on-3 league for the women to try to prevent them from having to go overseas and play and make extra money. Do you have any thoughts on the 3-on-3 league, and do you think it could be successful?
When is it going to be played?
January.
Yeah, I think it could be successful.
It's
a lot going on there. I would start it if I were Stewie and Nafisa. I would start it after the college football playoffs. I wouldn't try to battle that.
Oh, right, for ratings. For
not even just for ratings, just for general attention.
Yeah.
Because you've got men's and women's college hoops, you've got the NHL, you've got the NFL playoffs, which are going to do a tad better than 3-on-3 basketball, be it men's or women, and then you've got this new league. So I think it could be. I think it can be successful. Clark doesn't seem like she's going to play. Angel Reese is her. So, and I think it just, what kind of TV deal do you get? What are the players going to be paid?
Yeah.
What are they trying to do? Piggyback off of that deal that Ice Cube has, that 3-on-3 league.
Yeah, they were trying to do it to prevent the girls from having to go overseas,
or the women, Dave.
Yeah. For the women. That's right. Okay, so that makes some sense. Who's the backers in that? Who?
Well, Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier are like the faces of the league.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly who's putting all the money into it.
Right.
Because to be honest with you, I've only read it. I haven't delved real deep into it. Because I hope this doesn't sound callous, but I don't really care.
No, I know. know.
I really don't. I really don't.
It's obviously it's piggybacking too. The Olympics has that 3-on-3 thing
Right.
they do. That was pretty popular. It was pretty popular.
Everybody plays 3-on-3.
Right.
Yeah,
no. They tell basketball players to play in the summer. They should be playing 3-on-3. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because you get more man-to-man matchups. You get more spacing, so on and so forth.
No, it was Maria who was telling me about it, that it's financed pretty well, and they're doing it for the sole purpose so the girls don't have to go overseas and play,
or the women.
So are they? So they're going to pay them. They're going to pay them the level that they get paid overseas.
Not the level that they're going to get paid overseas,
okay.
But
I know have some money coming in.
No.
Yeah, they're going to make a decent.
I heard they make a ton of money.
They do.
The stars do. The stars.
They do. They do overseas. They do for sure overseas.
Well, good stuff.
So Joe.
Yes.
Prediction for tonight against Baylor. Do you see them coming out, starting fast? We're home. We're at Gamble Pavilion. Now we're on break, so the students won't be there.
No, they're not. What are you talking about?
They're not on break. Oh, they're not on break yet. It's next
past
week.
Thanksgiving week.
Oh,
what are you smoking there today?
Dude, I got CTE.
Are you one of the guns?
Do you really have CTE, or are you just saying it?
Because
I do have CTE.
You're a little more off key than normal today.
Yes, I agree.
You forgot to send the link. You can't remember. You can't remember they're called women, not
Joe. He was adamant because I had a guy I used to coach with. He was doing a breakdown of the run and shoot offense today at 11, and so he said, "Please send me the link early." I sent him the link last night. Okay,
I know.
And then I sent it again this morning twice. So I was sitting there in the queue. That's what I did for a walk with my dog. I'm like, I guess maybe we're not doing it. I didn't know if we were doing it, and he wasn't responding. So I'm like, let me walk dog. Let me text him one more time, and then everybody appeared. I was like, oh, okay, we are doing it.
I go back to the women's league for a minute. And we get on to the So according to the story I'm reading on CBSSports.com. The season starts January 17th, 8 weeks. Games are Monday, Friday, and Saturday. TNT and True TV will be the broadcasters. So immediately there's credibility. All the games will be streamed on Max. And this says each player will make a minimum of 6 figures.
Yeah,
get equity in the league.
Yeah, that's why Maria had said it was very important because
what is Max? You mean like a Cinemax?
Cinemax.
No,
Cinemax.
It's going to stream on Cinemax?
Well, a lot of the TNT stuff does now.
That's incredible.
I watch wrestling on Max. Yeah. No, so what happened, I went out to get my coffee and I tripped.
Where'd you go, Steve? What did you get? Tell us.
I had it delivered to my house.
Wait a minute.
Wait, you get delivered?
I DoorDashed it.
What?
I DoorDashed it. I DoorDashed Starbucks, okay? I like the DoorDash Starbucks.
David, I think we need an intervention here.
I opened the door.
I get it if you're getting the whole family a meal DoorDashing it, but like
I DoorDash. First of all, DoorDashing the coffee isn't the story. I DoorDashed the coffee. I open the door.
Okay.
And I step out and I tripped and I fell into the rocks in our front yard.
No.
So that was why I was slightly late.
Okay, what's the lesson we take from this, Steve? We don't get coffee DoorDash to us. We can be big enough to go out. How far is the Starbucks from you?
Okay, well, yeah, I could have driven to the Starbucks. Yes,
you didn't even have to get out of the goddamn car. Yeah. You could have gone through the drive-through. How old are you now?
Well, I say that I'm 40, Okay. I don't count 2 years, but I'm really 42.
Okay, so you're 42. A 71-year-old guy getting coffee delivered is a bad idea. Never mind a 42-year-old guy.
I love going out and getting the coffee. It gives me like a few minutes of relaxation away from the house.
Get away from your microphone and your $80 million mixing board. So, by the way, let me just end up with this. Let me just end up on this women's league. There's a lot of good players committed to it.
I know.
Really?
I know.
There's a lot of you've got most of the real big WNBA names committed to it. You've got Alyssa Thomas, Courtney Williams, you've got Kai, you've got Skylar Diggins-Smith, you've got Alicia Gray, you've got Dejanay Carrington, Jewel Lloyd. You got a lot of good players committed.
Yeah, the whole purpose was to keep them stateside,
right?
Because when they go and play overseas, they come back late for the start of the WNBA,
which the coaches hated.
Yeah, my only question is: the WNBA loses 40-50 million a year.
Well, TNT.
How is that going to? How is that going to be sustainable? If they're having trouble drawing eyes in
but if TNT or one of the networks is financing it, it's different. TNT lost the NBA, so I think that's why they.
It's not the NBA this year.
Yes, they have it this
going
year.
Forward, yeah,
they're going to be losing the NBA,
right?
So that is why.
Well, but yes, but you can't. Again, falling into the rocks may have hurt your thinking on this, but losing the NBA and thinking the unrivaled is going to replace it is a little bit off the beaten path.
Right.
Would you agree, David?
Oh, I think I would agree 100% on that
one. They're drawing at straws.
Unless they're bringing in Charles Barkley and back to analyze the 3v3 and Shaq. I don't know.
No, he's going to be on ESPN. They're taking the whole show to ESPN.
I know. I'm saying it facetiously, but
which is kind of interesting because I hadn't thought of this. And again, we're going way off the rails here. But with Cully, that's the norm, not the difference. But one of the things about inside the NBA is the post-game analysis.
Yes.
Right. Well, if they're on ABC on a Saturday night, they're going right to local news. They're not hanging around.
That's true.
For half an hour, 45 minutes.
You're going to lose that.
So we'll see. But it's just good that they would keep them together. All right, Steve, let's go back to your original question here.
Okay.
What do I think is going to happen tonight?
We got the games between Baylor and Texas coming up. They're obviously critical, and Texas is on Sunday, so we'll be able to talk about both games on next Wednesday.
If you remember the link.
If I remember the link. Boy, Dave, you're going to have a bunch of good shorts from this one. If I remember the link, yes. Baylor and Texas, do you see them splitting? Do you see them winning both? Do you see them losing both?
No, I don't see them winning both. I see them splitting.
You see them splitting.
I see them winning tonight.
Yeah. Wow, really?
I see him. Because I think Gamble is
being
an
at
environment that Baylor won't be used to.
Okay.
So I actually think they'll have a bounce back tonight. I would think McNeely will have a big game, and I'm predicting Jalen Stewart will have a big game. Okay. And then I think Sunday they go into Texas and they lose a really close game.
They lose a really close game going down to Texas too.
Right. So I think. And look, I think at this stage, dealing with Alex's injury and the like, I think 1-1 is fine. I don't think 1-1. Look, 0-3 is not the end of the world either. It just wouldn't be a good look.
But if you come out 1-1,
I think 1-1 is fine.
Yeah. Dave?
I don't think I know enough to know between Texas and Baylor's roster. Texas has been very good as of late. I mean, I kind of agree that I don't know which. Listen, winning at home is 10. Playing a gamble is 10 points in their favor. So that's a +10. So whatever the score would have been if they're even up, if Baylor right now is playing slightly better than we are, not that they're really kind of have been a world beater, but if they're slightly better, that 10 points is what I think is the difference. I think in basketball at home, and I think the same flip when you go to Texas, that's the same flip in the other direction.
Exactly.
And I think that's the difference for those games. So I would agree that it's probably going to be a 1-1, only because of that. I don't think that there's that huge a difference from anything other than that. I mean, the home, especially when you're traveling in basketball, traveling wide distances, that home court advantage is a big thing. It's a legit 10-point swing, and you really have to play much better than the other team to overcome that.
I'm gonna say that they're gonna go 2-0.
Of course you are.
They're undefeated. Right now we're 9-0. We're 9-0 right now.
If they lose to Baylor or Texas, I will DoorDash a coffee to Joe D.
Please don't. I don't want you to get hurt. I don't want to.
No, I'll send to you. I'll send DoorDash sent to Joe D's house.
David, you're right. They're 9-0 in Steve's eyes.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. If you ever listen to some of the in the South, like LSU or Alabama, any of their podcasts and predictions for their football games, they're always Alabama or LSU. They're always undefeated. So because they always because they're the greatest homers there are in the world, those guys.
Oh, well, the Boston Globe used to be like that with the Patriots. Nobody ever picked against the Patriots.
Yes, they never did, Sean. He never did.
Never picked against the Patriots. But
I offered DoorDash. I will DoorDash.
All right, I'll take you up on that.
If they lose.
Except that means I'd have to give you my address, which I'm a little sketchy on.
Well, I won't say. I'll delete it. I'll delete it.
Come there.
I'll delete it.
I don't want you delivering. Steve, put it this way. I love you. I don't want you delivering the coffee.
I'm not going to deliver the coffee.
He's going to make the $1.80. He's going to deliver it himself for you.
If Joe's a good tipper, maybe I'll deliver it.
No greater love. Hey, let me ask you a question. You're football guys. What do you think the screw job the playoff committee's doing in Miami?
Wow, that was a shocker. That was a shocker that they dropped them that far out.
And Ward, our guy Ward Manuel, who's there in the committee, says there's no chance of them getting ahead of Alabama.
Yeah, which I can't believe.
Well, Alabama's been politicking.
There's nobody
that politics better than the Alabama, whoever their alum are. But the coach has been politicking. The guy
from Washington. Yeah.
He's been politicking. He's been politicking hard to make sure that they're in that mix.
And I'll say this though, Syracuse beating Miami makes UConn look a lot better.
It does, yes,
because of coming so close at Syracuse. You know, I mean, I think UConn had all the advantages this year, playing as many home games as they did in a row against teams that were like not as good as them. You know, other than Wake Forest, which was the only one they lost. And even though they didn't win a P4 game, and they were the middle or lower ranked P4 teams, I think it gives a little better light to just what a good job Coach Mora and the assistants and the kids did this year. Now what I want to see them, and we can talk about this next week, I want to see them get in a bowl game where they have to fight somebody.
Yeah, I think they will.
I think in North Carolina, I've seen Florida mentioned. Look, Boston College would be a lot of fun.
That would be a blast.
You know, you don't want to – if you're UConn, the last thing you want to play is in the Fenway Bowl.
Well, I like the Pinstripe Bowl. They get into that.
It could be Pinstripe. I mean, there's like five. Me and Steve went through it. There's like five. There's like 5 different media outlets have given 5 different, literally 5 different bowl games for UConn.
Yeah.
So we kind of like we went through it. I think on Monday, and it was like
St. Petersburg.
I mean, it was
Boca,
literally 5 different places. It's crazy. So obviously, there's one thing I think that Jim Mora did really good was the scheduling. Like you said, he took a page out of good old Barry Alvarez when he first turned around Wisconsin. If you give the guys confidence, maybe when they play some of these better teams, they'll be able to do the job. And I think in basketball, it doesn't work as well with that. But in football, it does because you actually can get beat up in football.
Right.
So,
right.
So if you're winning games and you're coming out healthy over and over again, and other teams are beating each other up, and now you face them. So I thought that was very. I don't know if that was done on purpose or an accident, but however the scheduling was done was definitely to their favor and
definitely worked. It definitely worked. So
yeah, it's going to make a difference. So for another banner episode of Husky Hoops, and I will go get my Starbucks coffee the next time and not DoorDash it. How
did you before you wrap? And look, time is up. How did you fall?
I tripped on the doorstep. My foot got caught. You
were a college football athlete?
I was at one point. Yes. Yeah. I tripped.
How the mighty have fallen, literally and figuratively.
And I fell into the rocks. We have rocks on the side of the house, so I fell off the sidewalk and rolled
Maybe time to move those rocks.
Yeah. I got a nice little scar right there. So yeah, it was a good one.
Old football guys, when they fall hard.
Still know how to fall. So for Joe D, the great, the legend, the voice of the Huskies, the best of the best, the icon, and Coach Schuman, the next greatest influencer, 1 million subscribers and counting. Dave Schuman, Coach Schuman, Sports and Entertainment YouTube channel. Smash that subscribe button for all the greatest UConn coverage available. And remember, when life gives you lemons, don't make lemonade. Just watch yourself when you go out to get your Starbucks.